Part 15. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuchi. Chapter 141. The four evil spirits suppress the gods, and the monster appears. Just as the female ghost in red quickly left the room and rushed towards Zhu Zhenjun desperately, Zhang Fenjai, who was standing next to the handrail of the stairs, printed the mark condensed in advance directly on the talisman paper on the handrail. Boom! Along with the silent roar, the four talismans attached to different locations in the stairwell burned automatically and quickly formed four streams of thick black smoke. 4 streams of black smoke passed through the evil dispelling charm on Zhu Zhenjun's belly and gathered into a ball of black smoke, which directly enveloped the female ghost in red. Immediately afterwards, the black smoke began to continuously offset the resentment and evil spirits emerging from her body. No. Resentment and evil spirit are not only the basis for her to stay in the world of the world, but also the only means for her to seek revenge. Therefore, when she felt that her resentment and evil spirit were rapidly draining away, the female ghost in red slowly revealed her ferocious and terrifying true body while screaming in panic. Because she could clearly feel that the murderer who hurt her was the key to the gathering of black smoke. She planned to use the method of revealing his ferocious true identity to intimidate the murderer who hurt her into escaping on his own initiative, thereby freeing herself from the blockade of black smoke. Ah! A bright red dress, long hair flying all over the sky, a face as pale as paper, blood constantly flowing out of her eyes, ears, and nose, and sharp and pointed nails that are more than 10 centimeters long. When she saw the appearance of the female ghost in red slowly revealed in the black smoke, the timid and innocent girl screamed. Although Sulitsi didn't scream, her slightly pale face and subconscious steps back were enough to show her fear at this time. Only the woman named Ye not only showed no fear, but also showed excitement in her eyes. Don't be afraid, I'm not afraid. My brother with great powers is by my side and I'm not afraid. When he saw the ferocious appearance of the female ghost in red, Zhu Zhenjun was so frightened that he quickly closed his eyes, and then talked to himself to encourage him. The purpose of revealing her true body at the risk of accelerating the consumption of resentment and evil spirits is to scare Zhu Zhenjun from leaving the place voluntarily, so that she can escape the blockade of black smoke. But the murderer who hurt him in front of him not only did not run away, but stood there motionless with his eyes closed. This made the female ghost in red feel extremely angry. At the same time, she changed into a more terrifying appearance and shouted loudly at Zhu Zhenjun. Lu, if you are still a man, then open your eyes and see who I am. My surname is Zhu, not Lu. The person she called just now is definitely not me. Hearing the harsh scolding of the female ghost in red, Zhu Zhenjun immediately used his unorthodox ideas to deceive and encourage himself. Lu, you killed my man and insulted my innocence. I know you even if you turn into ashes. Please open your eyes and look at me. When she heard Zhu Zhenjun's words of encouragement to him, the female ghost in red was almost driven mad. While continuing to shout harshly, she forced herself out of the black smoke at the cost of suffering heavy damage to her soul, and rushed towards Zhu Zhenjun with her teeth and claws bared. However, just when the long hair of the female ghost in red was flying around Zhu Zhenjun's head, just when her sharp nails touched Zhu Zhenjun's heart, the blood curse light suddenly burst out from his forehead, directly destroying the long hair of the female ghost in red. The black smoke that erupted from Zhu Zhenjun's belly broke off the sharp nails and completely eliminated the remaining resentment and evil spirit on her body. Heaven and earth are infinite, money turns into a lock. At the moment when the resentment and evil spirits on the female ghost in red were eliminated by the blood curse and the exorcism curse, Zhang Fenjai threw out the money sword, quickly condensed marks on his fingers, and whispered the spell in his mouth. The 36 pieces of money that quickly dispersed reorganized into a money chain, and then locked the female ghost in red tightly. Call. Until this moment, Zhang Fenjai breathed a sigh of relief. Brother, is it safe? Reaching out to wipe away the trace of blood remaining on his forehead after losing his spiritual power, Zhu Zhenjun stepped to Zhang Fenjai's side, and then looked at the female ghost in red who was desperately trying to break free of the money chain. There was still a look of fear in his eyes. "Don't worry." Looking at the female ghost in red struggling desperately to get rid of the golden lock seal, Zhang Fenjai explained with a relaxed expression. 36 chains of money can not only restrict her ability to move, but also prevent her from gathering resentment and evil spirits again. That's good. After hearing Zhang Fenjai's explanation, Zhu Zhenjun gently patted his chest and let out a long sigh of relief. "Yezi, thank you." Sulitzi, who also heard Zhang Fenjai's assurance and explanation, quickly walked up to him, and then looked up at him with infinite tenderness and gratitude in her eyes. "Sister Litzi, do you and I still need to be so polite?" Zhang Fenjai asked, pretending to be unhappy while holding Sulitzi's hand. In this regard, Sulitzi felt very happy and sweet and wanted to pour into his arms. But at this moment, the stunning woman named Ye suddenly walked up to Zhang Fenjai, stretched out her jade hand with a charming smile on her face, and introduced her actively. "Hello, my name is Ye Xianyuan. I am 24 years old, unmarried, and the general manager of Fengda Group." If it was just a simple introduction of the name and work, Sulitzi might not have been suspicious, but the other party even introduced his age and marital status in detail, which made her feel strongly hostile. Because Ye Xianyuan's appearance and figure are not inferior to hers, and her wealth, status, and charm are even better than hers, and her potential threat is no less than Shen Loxi. Fortunately, Zhang Fenjai's next reaction reduced her inner hostility a little. "I am Kingxiu, and I meet the donor yet." Without touching Ye Xianyuan's outstretched jade hand, Zhang Fenjai bowed with one hand in return, and turned to the red-clothed female ghost who had completely given up struggling. "Do it." The red-clothed female ghost, with a trace of loneliness and sadness in her eyes, slowly closed her eyes and put on a posture of being slaughtered. "Why don't you believe that I really want to help you get justice?" Facing the red-clothed female ghost who would rather die than believe in his sincerity, Zhang Fenjai was quite puzzled. Facing Zhang Fenjai's questioning, the red-clothed female ghost slowly opened her eyes and said with a slight smile. 4 months ago, after my man fell from here, in order to conceal the responsibility of the accident, under the threat of the boss surnamed Lu, my man's fellow villagers and co-workers watched him die in pain bit by bit, but no one was willing to send him to the hospital for rescue. 3 months ago, in this room, those relatives and neighbors who accompanied me to pursue death compensation allowed the beast surnamed Lu to tarnish my innocence for the benefit of a few thousand yuan. At this point, the red-clothed female ghost suddenly raised her head and looked at Zhang Fenjai, and then questioned at the top of her voice. Even my man's fellow villagers and co-workers turned their backs on me, and even my relatives and neighbors persecuted me in return. Why would I believe that a person without relatives or friends would help me for no reason? The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yanyun Yuqi. Chapter 142. When Zhang Fenjai heard the red-clothed ghost's reasons for not wanting to believe him, he nodded to show his understanding, and finally understood why the other party was able to break through the ghost and the evil ghost and advance to the evil ghost in such a short time. After all, the despair caused by the excessive indifference, ruthlessness, cold-bloodedness, and betrayal of relatives and friends is the key to arousing endless resentment and evil spirit. Moreover, the tragic experience of the red-clothed ghost and her man, as well as the unfair treatment they encountered, also made him more determined to help the other party redeem her grievances and reincarnate. Collect. After pinching the magic formula with his right hand to retract the money chain and temporarily return the red-clothed ghost to freedom, Zhang Fenjai turned his head and instructed Sulitzi. "Sister Litzi, I hope to know the detailed information of all the people present when Lu Xiaoyi from the group construction department and her man fell and were seriously injured in the shortest time, mainly their date of birth and home address." After hearing Zhang Fenjai's instructions, Sulitzi reminded in a low voice with a trace of worry in her eyes. "Yezi, Lu Xiaoyi is not only the director of the group's construction department, but also the only brother of the chairman's wife, and the uncle that Luo 11 respects and is closest to. If you want to punish Minister Lu, you will definitely offend the chairman's wife, and it will also affect the relationship between you and Luo 11. Sister Li Zi, I know everything you said just now. As for the relationship between Lu Xiaoyi and the Shen family, the innocent girl had kindly told him in advance, so Zhang Fengjie nodded without any surprise, and expressed his attitude solemnly. But every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its creditor. Since Lu Xiaoyi dared to do such a thing that hurts the heavens, then as a Taoist monk with a conscience, I have the responsibility and obligation to enforce justice on behalf of the heavens. If Shen Loxi and her mother are angry with me because of this matter, it means that my fate with the Shen family has ended, then I will take the initiative to resign and leave Yongshen Group. After hearing Zhang Fengjie's righteous statement, a hint of surprise and expectation flashed in Zhu Zhenjun and Ye Xianyun's eyes at the same time. Okay. In fact, the reminder just now was not so much about worrying about Zhang Fengjie as it was about worrying about her own future. Because she and Zhang Fengjie were lovers, Shen Zhenghao and his wife knew it clearly. Solitsi was worried that Lu Shuhua would be angry with her because of Lu Xiaoyi's matter, which would eventually affect her newly promoted position as vice president. Fortunately, she knew the importance between her own future and her lover, and finally nodded and agreed to Zhang Fengjie's request. I wonder what the female donor's name should be. After getting Solitsi's consent, Yu Heiran bowed with one hand and asked the red-clothed female ghost who had hidden her true body again and was in a hurry to restore her resentment and evil spirit. I am Li Changwan. Perhaps because Zhang Fengjie showed mercy twice in a row, or perhaps because of his action of inquiring about the murderer Lu Xiaoyi just now, the red-clothed female ghost's hostility gradually disappeared, and her attitude in reply was much more polite. Master Li, I know that you, who have experienced the ups and downs of life, find it difficult to believe in the true love of the world, but I hope you can temporarily put down your guard and give each other a chance to choose and trust. Master, I don't know what you want Changwan to do. After hearing Zhang Fengjie's sincere request, the red-clothed female ghost asked without any hostility. Leave here temporarily and follow me to find the murderer who hurt you, and then use your evil ghost ability to collect evidence of the murderer's crime and finally let him get the punishment he deserves. Why don't you let me take his life directly? Faced with the punishment method given by Zhang Fengjie, the red-clothed female ghost suddenly questioned emotionally. After taking a step forward suddenly, using the aura of the spiritual power he stimulated to fully suppress the evil spirit emerging from the red-clothed female ghost, Zhang Fengjie warned with a serious look. Donor Li, every country has its own laws, every family has its own rules. As an ordinary person in the secular world, no matter how serious the crime Lu Xiaoyi committed, he can only accept the judgment and punishment of secular law. Moreover, the reason why you are qualified to reincarnate now is because you have not committed any murder, which is why I am willing to help you selflessly. If you use the means of evil ghosts to harm Lu Xiaoyi, then not only will you lose the opportunity to reincarnate, but I will also eliminate you for the sake of justice. In fact, the reason why Lu Xiaoyi was punished by secular law was not only because he did not want Li Changwan to commit the sin of murder, but also because he did not want to bear too much of the karma formed when people and ghosts conflicted. Hearing Zhang Fengjie's stern warning, especially the hint of murderous intent revealed in the suppression of spiritual power, Li Changwan quickly calmed down her anger and put away the evil spirit that emerged from her body. Donor Li, is your soul-sustaining object the photo on the living room wall? Seeing Li Changjuan's emotions calm down, Zhang Fengjie, who also withdrew his spiritual power and murderous intent, asked calmly. Yes, Li Changwan nodded in agreement. Go. Return to the photo, and then leave here temporarily with me. After hearing Zhang Fengjie's instructions, Li Changwan went directly through the wall and returned to the living room, and then used the resentment and evil spirit to control the photo to fly out of the room. Reaching out to catch the photo floating in front of him and placing it in his sleeve, Zhang Fengjai turned his head to remind Su Litzi and Zhu Zhenjun. Sister Litzi, brother Zhu, let's leave here. Yezi, this place won't be haunted anymore, right? Looking at the open door, and thinking of the photos that Zhang Fengjai had just put away, Su Litzi asked with expectation in her eyes. No. After waving his sleeves and closing the door with the strong wind, Zhang Fengjai nodded and explained. After understanding Li Changjuan's wish, I will use the Taoist method of salvation to send her to reincarnate, and no ghosts will appear here anymore. After hearing Zhang Fengjai's explanation, Su Litzi breathed a sigh of relief, and while waiting for the elevator, she continued to persuade Ye Xianyun to give up the idea of checking out. But for some reason, Ye Xianyun kept refuting with various reasons, and she didn't want to continue to buy this luxury house in building number 9. Sister Litzi, how much is this house in total? Turning her head to look at Ye Xianyun's face, she found that the wealth palace on the right side of her forehead was covered by a layer of light black clouds, and she knew that the reason why she insisted on checking out was probably because there was a certain problem with the funds. Thinking about his observations of the layout of the entire room when he was searching for Li Changjuan's soul containment object just now, as well as the degree to which the height and angle of the floor affected the gathering of spiritual energy from heaven and earth, Zhang Fengjai suddenly had the idea of buying it. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yanyun Yuqi. Chapter 143. Yizi, what do you want to do? When Su Litzi heard Zhang Fengjai ask about the price of the house that Ye Xianyun had withdrawn, Su Litzi suddenly felt nervous, and at the same time, an unpleasant feeling emerged in her heart. Because she had a hunch that the other person was likely to leave the apartment they shared. And Zhang Fengjai's next answer made her hunch come true. Sister Lizzie, if the price is right, I want to buy this house directly. Why? Su Litzi asked in confusion and displeasure. Because the 2-bedroom apartment in Golden Orchid Court can fully satisfy the living and life of 2 people, there is no need to spend a huge amount of money to buy this duplex mansion. 2 reasons. Looking at the elevator door that opened slowly, Zhang Fengjai stepped out of the elevator and came outside the building. Then he pointed at the rockery, pond, weeping willows and corridor in front of him and explained. The first reason is that the feng shui layout of Roman Holiday is far better than that of the Golden Orchid Garden. If you stay there for a long time, you can not only keep your mood comfortable, but also subtly improve your wealth and luck. After explaining this, he turned around and held Su Litzi's jade hand, and said with tenderness and perseverance in his eyes. The second reason is due to my selfishness. I want to rely on my own abilities to give my beloved woman a stable, comfortable, and carefree home. After hearing the explanation given by Zhang Fengjai, Su Litzi's inner confusion and displeasure were instantly replaced by sweetness and happiness. At the same time, she threw herself directly into his arms, and then whispered softly with a delicate voice. Road. Yizi, I love you. Sister Lizzie, I love you too. Looking at Zhang Fengjai and Su Litzi hugging each other tightly, Ye Xianyun's eyes showed a trace of envy, envious that Su Litzi could find a strange person like Zhang Fengjai as her boyfriend. There was a trace of happiness in the innocent girl's eyes. She was lucky that she had just taken the initiative to receive Zhang Fengjai, which allowed her to not only meet the female ghost in red in folklore, but also gain the gratitude and favor of Su Litzi, a senior executive of the group. Zhu Zhenjun's eyes showed a trace of emotion, and he took the initiative to interrupt the tender embrace between Zhang Fengjai and Su Litzi. Brother, how about the feng shui layout of Roman Holiday and Guanghe Mansion? Everyone has his own merits. After thinking for a while, Zhang Fengjai gave his own opinion. Guanghe Huafu is a feng shui layout based on stars and supplemented by the 5 elements. It can improve people's physique and enhance wealth, luck in a short period of time. However, the stars are yang, and the power of yang evil will suppress the fire in the five elements and destroy the principle of mutual generation and restraint of the five elements. If you live there for a long time, your wealth and power will continue to be weakened. Roman holiday is a feng shui layout based on artificially modified terrain, supplemented by the five elements. Although the benefits of feng shui layout will not be reflected in a short period of time, if you live there for a long time, your physical fitness, wealth, and luck will be significantly improved. After hearing Zhang Fengjai's feng shui explanation about Guanghe Washington Villa and Roman holiday, Ye Xianyuan showed a trace of hesitation in her eyes, wondering whether to regret her decision to check out just now. There was a hint of envy and helplessness in the eyes of the innocent girl. She envied the feng shui environment of the Roman holiday but was helpless due to her lack of financial resources. Zhu Zhenjun asked Sulitzi directly. Brothers and sisters, apart from the house my brother is interested in, are there any vacant houses in Building 9? Although Sulitzi didn't know Zhu Zhenjun, she could guess from his clothes and demeanor that the fat man with a big belly in front of her was definitely a rich tycoon. Therefore, she quickly left Zhang Fengjai's arms and planned to accept the business that came to her. But before she had time to answer Zhu Zhenjun's question, she was stopped by Zhang Fengjai, who shook his head. Then, he looked directly at the innocent girl with a look of envy and helplessness in her eyes. "Girl, I'm so sorry. Because I was busy rescuing Sister Lizzie just now, I forgot to ask you your name. My name is Xia Qingxuan, Xia from Xia Tian, Qin from Qin Sheng, Xian from Xian Yuan," the pure girl quickly introduced herself. "Miss Qingxuan, I wonder how much the house that Mr. Ye just returned was worth." As the best sales elite of Yongsheng Group, Xia Qingxuan, who is well versed in human affairs, could not see Zhang Fengjai's obvious intention to take care of herself. Therefore, she quickly adjusted her emotions and introduced it seriously. "Mr. Zhang, the house that Mr. Ye just returned is not only a well-decorated two-story duplex suite that can be moved in directly, but it is also the king of building number 9, with an overall price of up to 5.5 million. 5.5 million. After hearing the house price given by Xia Qingxuan, Zhang Fengjai closed his eyes and calculated silently. Lala Village blackmailed Huaxi into giving him 2 million in cash, giving him a fortune of 20,000 yuan. The 300 million cash apology from Lin Dayuan and Lin Chilan gave him the fortune to control 3 million. As a reward for getting rid of the soul-eating goo, Shen Gao gave him 1 million in cash, giving him the fortune to control 10,000. The 20 million in cash used by the Chu family to seal the deal and the 15 million in stock dividends gave him a fortune of 350,000 at his disposal. All in all, the amount of wealth he can control now is only 3.38 million, which is still 2.12 million short of the total house price. If he uses the 2.1 million that affects his fortune in advance, he will need to donate 212 million in wealth as compensation within just 1 month. Otherwise, he will suffer the karma of his fortune backlash, which makes him waver in his idea of buying a luxury house. But thinking of the promise he made to Sulitzi just now, if he suddenly regrets it, it will not only make her feel extremely disappointed, but also affect his unyielding heart. So, after careful consideration, Zhang Fengjai opened his eyes and nodded to Xia Qingxuan. "Miss Qingxuan, I bought this house." "Really?" After hearing Zhang Fengjai's answer, Xia Qingxuan asked in surprise. Because according to the sales incentives formulated by Yongsheng Group, the sales commission rate of the duplex luxury house that Zhang Fengjai just bought is as high as 5.5%. In other words, if the transaction is successful in the end, she will get more than 300,000 sales incentives afterwards, which is almost equivalent to her income in the past 6 months. How can she not be excited and excited? "We'll go to the sales office to sign the contract and pay the money later," Zhang Fengjai replied with a smile. After receiving Zhang Fengjai's affirmative answer, Xia Qingxuan nodded excitedly and thanked him. "Thank you, Mr. Zhang, thank you, Mr. Zhang." After waving his hand to indicate that Xia Qingxuan didn't need to be polite, Zhang Fenjai quietly winked at Zhu Zhenjun. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 144. Roman Holiday, Sales Office. Although there are still more than 40 minutes before the end of get off work, for the sales staff of the Roman Holiday Sales Office, it is already a day's work that has been finished early. Because at this time, basically no customers will come to see the house, so most of the staff, after redressing, gathered in front of the sand table in the sales hall, laughing and chatting about today's gains while waiting for the end of get off work. Just as the mood of the chat was gradually getting high, Xia Qingxuan's voice of uncontrollable joy suddenly came from the back door of the sales office. "Sister Hua, Sister Li, you quickly prepare 2 purchase contracts for Building No. 9. Xia Qingxuan's voice immediately attracted the attention of many sales staff in the hall. They stopped chatting and turned to look at the back door of the sales office, looking at Xia Qingxuan and others who came out of the back door. When they saw Xia Qingxuan's difficult smile on her face, they showed a puzzled look in their eyes. Could it be that she could still be lucky enough to sign a big order at this time? However, when they saw Sulitzi, whose face was as gloomy as water, the doubtful look in their eyes was instantly replaced by nervousness, and then they quickly stood up and lined up to greet her. Because they, like Xia Qingxuan at the beginning, mistakenly thought that Sulitzi had already left the sales office of Roman Holiday. And the stunning woman who had ridiculed Zhang Fenjai at the beginning showed an incredible look in her eyes, which was equivalent to the nervousness of the staff. Because she found that the poor boy she looked down on was actually holding President Su's jade hand, and President Su did not object at all. "President Su, Mr. Zhang, Mr. Zhu, President Ye, please sit down." Ignoring the gazes of her colleagues, Xia Qingxuan took Zhang Fenjai and others to the VIP lounge in the hall, and served the best tea and coffee, then turned around to prepare some procedures for buying a house. "Sister Litzi, are you still angry with me?" Looking at Sulitzi, who deliberately shook his hand and did not sit with him, Zhang Fenjai smiled and shook his head, then stood up and walked to her side, and then squatted in front of her and asked. "Yezi, the total price of the 2 duplex mansions you and Mr. Zhu bought is as high as 10 million. Seeing Zhang Fenjai squatting in front of her, not realizing her mistake at all, and still with a happy smile on her face, Sulitzi immediately criticized him angrily. According to the group's sales commission ratio for duplex mansions, the staff responsible for selling mansions will have a commission of 5.5%, which means more than 600,000 cash rewards. More than 600,000 is almost the sum of my 3-month salary and bonus. Do you think I can't feel distressed or angry?" Alas! After hearing Sulitzi's criticism, Zhang Fenjai sighed and sat directly beside her, then stretched out his hand to hug her shoulders and reminded her solemnly. "Sister Litzi, do you believe it? If I count the sales performance of the 2 mansions to you, you will not only not get more than 600,000 sales commissions afterwards, but also lose more wealth." Zhang Fenjai's solemn reminder made Sulitzi immediately realize the seriousness of the matter, and she quickly turned her head and asked. "Yezi, what's going on?" "Sister Lizi, I can't explain the specific reason. You just need to know that the reason I did this is for your own good." In fact, Zhang Fenjai had his own difficult reasons for transferring the sales performance of the 2 luxury houses to Xia Qingxuan. Firstly, he was able to rescue Sulitzi and Ye Xianyun in such a short time, thanks to Xia Qingxuan's initiative to lead the way. The sales reward of more than 600,000 yuan was considered to repay her favor. Secondly, he and Sulitzi were lovers. The 2.12 million overdraft in the purchase of the luxury house would affect his fortune during this period. If the reward for overdrafting wealth is transferred to Sulitzi, then the relationship of lovers will also affect her luck. Thirdly, Zhu Zhenjun was willing to buy a luxury house in building number 9 entirely because of him, which formed a more complicated cause and effect relationship. If the reward Zhu Zhenjun got from buying a luxury house is transferred to Sulitzi, it will also affect her luck in the future. I'm sorry. Although Zhang Fengjai did not give the specific reason for transferring the sales performance, Sulitzi guessed from the helplessness in his tone that it might be related to the Taoist metaphysics he practiced, so she immediately felt very guilty and apologized quickly. Sister Litzi, it's okay, Zhang Fengjai smiled and shook his head to comfort her. Mr. Zhang, Mr. Zhu, this is the contract for the purchase of 2 duplex suites in building number 9. Please take a detailed look. Xia Qingxuan, who returned to the VIP lounge, placed a pile of documents and materials in front of Zhang Fengjai and Zhu Zhenjun. In this regard, Zhang Fengjai, in addition to signing the contract afterwards, left all the rest to Zhu Zhenjun, a professional, to handle. 20 minutes later, when Zhang Fengjai took Sulitzi and Zhu Zhenjun out of the sales hall, many sales staff in the sales hall looked at Xia Qingxuan, who could hardly hide the joyful smile on his face, and their eyes showed naked envy and jealousy. Selling 2 duplex luxury houses in building number 9 in one go allowed her to complete this month's sales target ahead of schedule. The sales commission of more than 600,000 yuan allowed her to move from an ordinary college student who had just graduated for half a year to a wealthy elite. Xia Qingxuan's legendary experience just now is exactly what these sales ladies have always dreamed of. Especially the stunning woman who once sneered at Zhang Fengjai, in addition to the look of envy and jealousy in her eyes, there is also regret that is difficult to conceal. If I had not been so arrogant and looked down on others, and had received the boy as warmly as Xia Qingxuan, the sales performance and reward of the second luxury house would definitely fall on me at this time. Brother Zhu, go back to your villa first. After leaving the sales hall of Roman Holiday, Zhang Fengjai took out the carefully packaged python meat from the Bugatti Veyron and instructed Zhu Zhenjun. Okay, call me if you have something. After making a gesture of making a phone call, Zhu Zhenjun started the sports car and left the parking lot. When did you meet such a rich friend? Sulitzi couldn't help but ask in confusion while starting the sports car and leaving the parking lot. Whether it was the casualness of his decision to buy a luxury house, or the generosity of his payment, or the top luxury car he owned, Bugatti Veyron, it was enough to prove Zhu Zhenjun's status as a super rich man. Zhang Fengjai had only been in Ningji City for half a month, and spent most of her time in the company and apartment, so she had no extra time to meet and make friends. Therefore, she was very puzzled that Zhang Fengjai could get to know Zhu Zhenjun, a top rich man. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 145. Sister Litzi, I met Zhu Zhenjun unexpectedly when I was helping Mr. Shen remove the soul-eating poison. Later, I helped him deal with some difficult things, and we became familiar with each other. Whether it was Zhu Zhenjun's twisted mentality, the vampires and masters from the West, or the conflict with the wealthy Chu family in the provincial capital, it was not suitable for Sulitzi to know, so Zhang Fengjai could only explain vaguely. Although Sulitzi was not very satisfied with this, she did not continue to ask. Because she knew that Zhang Fengjai must have reasons that were not convenient to explain in detail, and she also knew the degree of getting along between men and women. If she continued to ask about the secrets he was unwilling to reveal, it would inevitably cause his displeasure, and it would affect their not-so-solid relationship. Zhang Fengjai, who did not know Sulitzi's true thoughts, was afraid that she would continue to ask about the details of her acquaintance with Zhu Zhenjun, so he quickly changed the subject. Sister Litzi, this afternoon I was in a wetland park not far from the company, and I accidentally got a treasure that can make your skin smoother and more delicate, and make your appearance more outstanding. Really, Sulitzi, whose inner dissatisfaction was instantly replaced by surprise, quickly turned her head to look at Zhang Fengjai's confirmation. More real than real gold. After seeing that he successfully attracted Sulitzi's attention, Zhang Fengjai secretly breathed a sigh of relief and patted his chest to assure. Afterwards, he quickly picked up the bag at his feet and explained with a smile. Moreover, President Chen and Denmi, I have already used it and personally verified the efficacy of this treasure. Turning her head to look at the bag in Zhang Fengjai's hand, Solitsi asked with expectation in her eyes. Yezi, what treasure is in the bag? Sister Litsi, this is. When he was about to introduce the origin and efficacy of python meat in detail, a trace of alertness suddenly emerged in his heart, and he immediately turned his head to look behind the car. When he saw the three vans with completely sealed windows approaching the sports car by constantly changing positions, he quickly ordered Solitsi. Sister Litsi, speed up. Solitsi, who had the experience of being tracked by the Black Tiger Chamber of Commerce, immediately stepped on the accelerator and started to speed up when she heard Zhang Fengjai's reminder. But unfortunately, it was the peak time after get off work, and it was also the time when the traffic was the heaviest. After only accelerating for less than 30 seconds, Solitsi had to start slowing down. Yezi, what's wrong? Solitsi asked nervously while looking for a gap to overtake. We are being targeted. When facing the pursuit of the Black Tiger Chamber of Commerce, he was overdrawn due to the double trauma of his mind and heart meridians, which affected his own strength. In the end, he was forced to rely on the Ratsi. Now, not only does he not consume any spiritual power, but his strength is also different from the past. So, through the sudden acceleration test just now, when he determined that the other party's target was himself and Solitsi, Zhang Fengjai replied with a slight smile on his face. Could it be someone from the Black Tiger Chamber of Commerce? Thinking of Tu Sainyi and others who were chased away by the Ratsi, Solitsi immediately guessed nervously. No. Solitsi didn't know the true situation of Tu Sainyi and others, but Zhang Fengjai, who drove the Ratsi, knew it, so he was sure that the people who were tracking him now would definitely not be from the Black Tiger Chamber of Commerce. Who could it be? After successfully overtaking a silver white-bid sedan, Solitsi frowned and thought. It's him. Although the windows of the three vans were sealed with black tape, the front window used to observe the road conditions could not be sealed. As the vans that were also speeding up kept approaching, Zhang Fengjai accidentally saw that the driver of one of the vans had an exquisite axe tattooed on his arm. A flash of inspiration suddenly flashed in his mind, allowing him to immediately guess the origins of those people. Who is it? Solitsi hurriedly asked when she heard that Zhang Fengjai seemed to know the origins of the pursuers. Zheng Heiran from the Brother Chamber of Commerce. Zhang Fengjai looked back at Solitsi and replied with a hint of hesitation in his eyes. Because he suddenly thought of the conflict that broke out in the office area this morning, when Solitsi asked him to let Zheng Heiran go. How could it be him? When Solitsi heard that the people who were following her at this time were Zheng Heiran, whom she had saved from Zhang Fengjai with good intentions, she seemed a little unbelievable. Why not? Zhang Fengjai also asked back in a somewhat incomprehensible way. After all, most of the mixed chambers of commerce are a group of narrow-minded and sinister villains, and their revenge after being at a disadvantage is justified. Yezi, Zheng Heiran once promised me in person this morning that he would never retaliate against you afterwards. How could he go back on his word? After narrowly overtaking a red A4 Audi, Solitsi still couldn't accept the explanation. Sister Litsi, you. After hearing Solitsi's reply, Zhang Fengjai suddenly didn't know what to say. What is a chamber of commerce? The purpose of obtaining illegal profits is to form a criminal gang that completely violates the secular legal order. It is called a chamber of commerce. The members of the Chamber of Commerce are either uneducated hooligans, criminals who commit crimes, or sinister and cunning tyrants. If you expect those bastards in the Chamber of Commerce to keep their promises, it only shows that you are too kind and ignorant. This is why he used torture and threats to deal with Zheng Heiran. Only by using ruthless means like thunder to completely shock the other party, so that the other party will not bother you honestly when they feel fear and dread. Yezi, What should we do next? Although it is unacceptable that Zhenheiren went back on his word and broke his promise, now is not the time to hold him accountable. Therefore, Solitsi quickly adjusted her mentality and immediately shifted her thoughts to how to deal with the pursuer behind her. Liz, get away from the city as quickly as possible, and then find a secluded place with few people. Turning his head to look at the three vans blocked by a black Volkswagen sedan, Zhang Fengjai ordered with a cold light in his eyes. Got it? Having experienced dealing with the Black Tiger Chamber of Commerce, Solitsi immediately guessed Zhang Fengjai's plan. Her nervousness was quickly replaced by excitement. She immediately turned the steering wheel to change lanes, and before the green light for turning left turned red, she drove directly to Jianxi Road leading to the north of the city. Go straight through. In the silver van at the back, Zhenheiren, who was sitting in the passenger seat, saw the sports car driven by Solitsi about to get rid of the pursuit, and immediately took out his mobile phone with a crazy look in his eyes and yelled at the driver of the van in the front. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 146. After receiving Zhenheiren's instructions, the van driver in the front row had a look of hesitation in his eyes. Because when the green light for turning right in front turns red, the red light in the north-south direction also turns green, which means that cars and pedestrians in the north-south direction can pass safely. At this time, if you force your way through, you may hurt innocent pedestrians. What's more, there are two traffic police in uniform standing at the intersection less than 20 meters away. Wang Lei, are you deaf, or are you too arrogant and don't want to listen to my orders? Seeing that the van in the front row not only did not speed up to chase Zhang Fengjai, but began to slow down slowly, Zhenheiren, whose face suddenly darkened, immediately threatened through the phone. Think about how the Chamber of Commerce deals with those disobedient subordinates, and think about your parents and girlfriend far away in the suburbs. Zhenheiren's threat to the safety of his relatives made Wang Lei shudder. Then, regardless of the pedestrians passing by, he suddenly accelerated and knocked over the black Volkswagen sedan, then changed lanes and turned to rush towards Jianxi Road. Fortunately, the noise caused by the van knocking over the black Volkswagen sedan woke up the pedestrians passing by in advance. Fortunately, the pedestrians passing by the sidewalk were a group of agile young people. They avoided the van in time and did not cause too many casualties in the end. Damn it! Seeing the van's crazy behavior, the young traffic policeman who was directing traffic at the intersection cursed with a serious face, and immediately turned to run towards the police car to chase, but was stopped by the middle-aged traffic policeman beside him. Xiao Zhao, if you don't want to implicate your parents and relatives, you should stay here honestly. Why? The young traffic policeman suddenly turned around and looked at the middle-aged traffic policeman, with an unbelievable look in his eyes. Although they are not criminal police who directly arrest criminals, as police who direct traffic, they also have the obligation and responsibility to stop crimes and protect the personal and property safety of ordinary people. Because they are from the Brotherhood Chamber of Commerce, the middle-aged traffic policeman reminded in a helpless voice. After hearing the reminder from the middle-aged traffic policeman, a trace of hesitation flashed in the eyes of the young traffic policeman. Because of the special profession of the traffic policeman, he had heard of the reputation of the Brotherhood Chamber of Commerce more than once, and also knew the serious consequences of offending the Brotherhood Chamber of Commerce. However, when he saw the overturned Volkswagen and the innocent pedestrians who were injured in order to avoid the van, his sense of responsibility, which had not been erased in his heart, quickly replaced the hesitation in the eyes of the young traffic policeman with determination. Then, he shook off the cowardly hand of the middle-aged traffic policeman, quickly rode on the police car, rang the alarm, and then accelerated to chase the van. In response, the middle-aged traffic policeman shook his head helplessly, and then stepped forward to help the innocent pedestrians who were injured and treat the injured in the Volkswagen. A group of livestock. Through the rearview mirror of the sports car, Zhang Fengjai saw the van that was madly hitting innocent pedestrians. His face was instantly gloomy and he cursed, and his eyes immediately showed a strong murderous intent that was difficult to suppress. Because the van's crazy behavior of directly hitting the Volkswagen sedan and innocent pedestrians was to chase the sports car he was riding in, this formed a direct cause and effect relationship. If the van caused casualties to innocent pedestrians during the collision, then he would need to bear the impact of the cause and effect relationship. And the cost of this direct cause and effect relationship is no less than the impact of his overdrawn fortune to buy a luxury house. Therefore, in order to avoid hurting more innocent passers-by, he can only temporarily give up the plan to rush to a secluded place to prepare in advance. Sister Litsi, slow down. Got it? So Litsi, who also saw the van's crazy behavior through the rearview mirror, knew why Zhang Fengjai asked to slow down. So, while she slowly slowed down the speed of the sports car, she tried to choose a small road without traffic lights to avoid it. Sister Litsi, what is that place? Just as Solitsi turned 3 small roads without traffic lights and entered a cement road with characters written on both sides of the road, Zhang Fengjai pointed to an abandoned factory about 40 meters ahead and asked. That was the original municipal fertilizer factory. As a local, Solitsi recognized the origin of the abandoned factory with just one glance. Later, due to pollution and odor, the government forced it to move to the roundabout road in the west of the city, so the factory has been idle. However, 3 years ago, the Zhulang Group took over the factory from the government in the name of building a children's playground and an elderly apartment, but for some reason, it has been shelved and has not been built. Sister Litsi, park the car at the door and let's go directly to the factory. Zhang Fengjai was not interested in why the Zhulang Group did not develop the abandoned factory, but the secluded environment of the abandoned factory was very suitable for dealing with Zheng Heiran and others. Got it? After nodding, Solitsi parked the car steadily at the factory gate. After pushing the door and getting out of the car, Zhang Fengjai walked to the iron gate in 2 or 3 steps, stretched out his hand to break the rusty iron lock, and then pushed the broken iron door open with force, leading Solitsi into the abandoned factory. Less than half a minute later, the 3 silver-white vans that were tracking also arrived at the gate of the fertilizer factory smoothly. Then, 36 Chamber of Commerce elites armed with machetes and Zheng Heiran with a thick bandage on his right hand rushed out of 3 vans. Check the real thing, Zheng Heiran ordered the 4 young men in black suits beside him, looking at the broken iron door pushed open by Zhang Fengjai. Master, the bullets are loaded and the safety is on. Upon hearing Zheng Heiran's order, the 4 young men in black suits took out 4 cold pistols from their arms, unloaded and loaded them, and replied to Zheng Heiran. Let's go. Nodding with satisfaction, Zheng Heiran rushed into the factory first. Just when Zheng Heiran and others entered the abandoned factory, the young traffic police who were desperately chasing them also came to the gate of the fertilizer factory. Then, he picked up a red brick from the ground and sneaked into the factory quietly. After entering the factory through the broken iron door, the first thing that came into view was the weeds and dead branches in the yard. Behind the weeds and dead branches, there are broken brick and tile factories and office buildings. After quickly scanning the scene, his eyes finally stopped at a red brick vacant lot in front of the office building. Sister Litsi, follow me, Zhang Fengjai gently reminded Solitsi, holding her jade hand. The red brick vacant lot in front of the office building not only has a very wide field of vision, but also has no obstacles. It will not affect his speed and is suitable for dealing with emergencies, so he plans to completely deal with Zheng Heiran and others there. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 147. Inside an abandoned fertilizer factory. After walking directly through nearly 30 meters of grass and dead branches and arriving at the red brick open space in front of the office building, Zhang Fengjai suddenly had an indescribable feeling. He always felt that the aura and feng shui around him were a bit strange. However, the sound of chaotic footsteps came from behind, so he could only temporarily suppress the weird feelings that kept emerging in his heart, and then told Solitsi to stay away from him temporarily to avoid affecting his next moves. Then, he turned around and looked at the group of people rushing towards him. Boy, I didn't expect that we would meet again so soon. Looking at the enemy in front of him who crushed his own palm and brought him endless humiliation, Zheng Heiran's eyes showed both the arrogance and the uncontrollable hatred. But to Zheng Heiran's surprise, when faced with the pursuit and interception he led, the other party not only did not show the slightest panic or anger, but instead showed a happy smile on his face. Yes. Looking at Zheng Heiran with his right hand wrapped in a bandage, Zhang Fengjai sighed with a smile on his face. I didn't expect you and I to meet again. Even though he has donated a huge sum of more than 350 million in just half a month, it seems that the process of earning controllable wealth is very simple. Actually. Otherwise. Whether it was the huge sum of 300 million used by Lin Dayuan to apologize, or the 4 million in cash used to extort Du Jiale and Hua Shi, there were both causes and effects that had been accumulated in the early stage, and there were also many coincidences. But serendipity doesn't happen often. He didn't have much confidence in whether he could earn over 2 million yuan in overdraft in just 1 month. However, seeing the desperate Zheng Heiran at this time, and thinking of the wealthy brothers' chamber of commerce behind him, Zhang Fengjai knew that he had encountered an unusual coincidence, so he showed a happy smile on his face. Boy, you are looking for death. Zhang Fengjai's sigh with a smile on his face, seemed to Zheng Heiran to be Chi Kuokyo's humiliation and provocation, which made him curse angrily before raising his left hand to give an attack order. But at this moment, Solitsi, who stood in front of the office building in advance, asked loudly with a hint of irritation. Mr. Zheng, you personally promised me this morning that you would never hold grudges or take revenge on Yezi afterwards. How could you go back on your word? When he heard Solitsi's question, Zheng Heiran's eyes immediately burned with endless anger. Then, he raised his right arm whose palm was crushed, and asked the same question with a ferocious look on his face. Mr. Su, if your palm is crushed into shattered bones, I wonder if you can let go of your hatred regardless of past grudges. Mr. Su, if you are humiliated in front of everyone, I wonder if you can be generous enough to smile and forget all grudges when we meet. This. When she asked Zhang Fengjai to let Zheng Heiran go, she was focused on how to avoid affecting the group's business. She neither considered Zhang Fengjai's mood nor noticed Zheng Heiran's crushed palms. At this time, when faced with Zheng Heiran's question, Solitsi suddenly didn't know how to reply. Destroy him. Solitsi's questioning completely exploded Zheng Heiran's accumulated resentment and anger, and he directly gave instructions to the men holding machetes behind him. Then, 32 gangsters armed with machetes rushed towards Zhang Fengjai with murderous intent. Call. Taking a deep breath, and mobilizing the physical strength of steel and iron bones, Zhang Fengjai prepared to accelerate to meet him. But at this moment, a hoarse shouting sound suddenly came from the grass. Stop it all! Whether it was the gangster holding a machete or Zhang Fengjai, who used the strength of steel and iron bones, they subconsciously stopped sprinting and then looked at the grass with confused expressions. Put down the weapons in your hands and squat on the ground with your hands on your head, with his right hand on his lower back, a young traffic policeman who was ready to grab at any time ordered with a serious expression while slowly walking out of the grass. When they saw the young traffic policeman walking out of the weeds, especially when he was ready to draw his gun at any time, 4 young men in black suits immediately stood in front of Zheng Heiran, and immediately stretched out their right hands to hold the gun in his arms. Pistol. However, Zhang Fengjai could tell from the young traffic policeman's slightly trembling legs and almost stiff facial expression that he was filled with fear and bluffing. Boy, if you dare to interfere in the affairs of our brother's chamber of commerce, I think you are impatient. With the protection of his loyal subordinates, Zheng Heiran immediately assumed the posture of his young president and threatened with an extremely arrogant expression. Get out of here now, right away, or else, this abandoned factory will be your kid's burial place. Whether it was the actions of the four young men in suits preparing to draw their guns or Zheng Heiran's arrogant threats, the young traffic policeman knew that his act of rushing out was too hasty. The other party didn't take his identity as a traffic policeman seriously at all, and he definitely had the guts to kill someone and silence him. At this time, the fear of death emerging from my heart completely defeated my courage. At this moment, he plans to obey Zheng Heiran's threat and leave the abandoned factory. However, when he looked up and saw the thin Zhang Fengjai and the stunning Sulitzi, his sense of responsibility as a policeman instantly overcame his fear and raised the bricks, and while rushing towards Zheng Heiran, he faced Zhang Fengjai and Sulitzi shouted loudly. You go away quickly, I'll hold them back. Although the young traffic policeman's behavior was too reckless, his actions touched Zhang Fengjai. After all, facing more than 30 gangsters with machetes and 4 Chamber of Commerce elites with pistols, he was able to stand up without fear of life and death, which was enough to show that the other party was a good man with conscience and a good policeman with a sense of justice. Such a good policeman is not only the blessing of the people, but also the foundation of the country's future strength and prosperity. It must not be easily caused. Therefore, Zhang Fengjai immediately mobilized his spiritual power to perform the Qingfeng step and appeared beside the other party before he was besieged by the gangsters. Then, he directly reached out and grabbed the other party's arm, threw it into the weeds with force, and ordered in a gentle tone. Brother policeman, you take a rest on the side first, let me deal with these cats and dogs. With a height of 1.80 meters and a weight of 160, he was like an ordinary wooden stick in the other party's hand, which made the young traffic policeman who landed steadily in the weeds immediately realize that the thin boy in front of him was not an ordinary person. Therefore, he did not risk rushing out, but quietly took out his mobile phone and opened the recording program, preparing to record the illegal behavior of Zheng Heiran and others so that it could be used as evidence for their arrest in the future. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 148. Inside the abandoned fertilizer factory. He used his index and middle fingers to break the machete, and kicked the opponent away with his raised right foot. He turned sideways to avoid the machete, and suddenly used his right shoulder to knock the opponent away. He took a step back to avoid the 2 machetes that were stabbing him, and suddenly stretched out his fists to knock out the opponent. He jumped nearly 3 meters in the air over the siege of 5 gangsters, and then used the force of falling to directly kick 3 opponents unconscious. 3 minutes. In less than 3 minutes, the 32 gangsters holding machetes either fainted and lay on the ground motionless, or crawled on the ground screaming in pain. This made the young traffic police standing in the weeds feel unbelievable, and also made Zheng Heiran decide to use the killer mace he had prepared in advance. Kill him for me. After hearing Zheng Heiran's order, the 4 young men in suits quickly took out their pistols and prepared to shoot, which also made the young traffic police truly see the audacity of the Brothers' Chamber of Commerce, one of the 4 major chambers of commerce in Ningji City. However, just as the 4 young men in suits were about to pull the trigger of their pistols, 4 white cold lights flashed like a gust of wind, and the pistols in their hands fell, and they immediately screamed while holding the bowls in their right hands. Because on their right wrists, there were 4 sharp machete fragments. Bang, 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 bang. Walked to the 4 screaming young men in suits, kicked the 4 dropped pistols to the young traffic police, and then stretched out his hands to stun them, and also sealed the acupuncture points on the wounds to prevent them from dying from excessive bleeding. You don't come over, Zheng Heiran, who looked at Zhang Fengjai who was walking slowly, begged with a trembling voice with a look of fear in his eyes. Bang. After kicking Zheng Heiran down directly, Zhang Fengjai stepped on his chest with his foot, secretly mobilizing his spiritual power, and threatened with an indifferent look. "Zheng Heiran, do you want to die or live now?" "I want to live," Zheng Heiran nodded and replied quickly, regardless of the pain and suffocation caused by the foot on his chest. "If you want to live, then prepare a ransom of 300 million immediately to exchange for your dog life." There are two reasons why the ransom price exceeds the 212 million required for overdrawing wealth. The first reason is that he needs to buy some items to deal with the nine-headed monster in the place of leaking yin, as well as some items for the stone bridge and stone lions. The second reason is that he needs to comfort and compensate the innocent pedestrians who were hit by the van just now. "I am just the heir of the Chamber of Commerce. My monthly income is only a few million. It is impossible for me to come up with a huge sum of 300 million, when he heard that the ransom amount was as high as 300 million, Zheng Heiran's eyes flashed with shock and he shook his head and explained. "I know you don't have that much money, but the president of the Brother Chamber of Commerce, that is, your biological father, does." Stretching out his hand to kick the mobile phone out of Zheng Heiran's pocket, Zhang Fengjai stepped back and ordered. "Call your father right now and ask him to prepare a ransom of 300 million. Otherwise, I guarantee you won't see the sun tomorrow." The young traffic policeman, who had admired Zhang Fengjai for his amazing skills, immediately showed a look of disgust when he saw him extorting 300 million yuan. However, he did not risk rushing out, but continued to use his mobile phone to record the video, also intending to use it as evidence for the future arrest and trial of Zhang Fengjai. When he heard that Zhang Fengjai actually allowed him to call his father, Zheng Heiran quickly stretched out his left hand to pick up the phone, and a smug look flashed in his eyes. Because his mobile phone is equipped with a GPS positioning system, the positioning error distance does not exceed 3 meters. His father can completely lead the elite masters of the Brotherhood Chamber of Commerce to rescue him through positioning. "Hello, Dad, this is Xiao Hao, I am now." After calling his father, Zheng Heiran quickly recounted in detail what had just happened and Zhang Fengjai's request for a ransom of 300 million. Then, a slightly hoarse voice came from the phone. "Son, let that kid answer the phone." "Zhang Fengjai, my father asked you to answer the phone." Zheng Heiran raised his phone and gestured. "Hello." In order to successfully obtain the 300 million ransom and make up for the overdrawn 200 million fortune, Zhang Fengjai tried to keep a calm tone after taking the phone, but a rather impolite threat came from the phone. "Boy, you dare to hurt and blackmail my son Zheng Guangshui, I think you are tired of living. Now, immediately, let my son go, and then kneel down to see me at the Haiqiushan Bath Center. If not, I, Zheng Guangshui, will make you want to live but not die." "Old man, don't be shameless." Originally, he wanted to discuss the ransom in a good tone and resolve the grievances between them, but Zheng Guangshui's arrogant and threatening attitude immediately caused Zhang Fengjai to be extremely disgusted. "Next, I will give you 20 minutes to prepare, and then deliver the 300 million ransom to the office building of the original fertilizer factory. If I don't see the 300 million ransom in 20 minutes, then I will bury Zheng Heiran and all the people in your Chamber of Commerce alive." After hanging up the phone directly, Zhang Fengjai kicked Zheng Hao unconscious and walked to Sulizi's side. "Yezi, I'm sorry." Holding Zhang Fengjai's broad palm tightly, Sulizi bowed her head and apologized with self-blame and regret in her eyes. "Sister Lizi, why are you apologizing?" Zhang Fengjai asked in confusion while re-observing the surrounding environment. "Yezi, if it weren't for my selfishness that made you let Zheng Heiran go easily, you wouldn't be retaliated by him now." "Sister Lizi, what selfishness?" Zhang Fengjai frowned slightly and asked when he heard Lizi mention her selfishness. "Yezi, the Brotherhood Chamber of Commerce behind Zheng Heiran controls Ningji City for nearly." Then, Sulizi explained in detail the reason why she stopped him from torturing Zheng Heiran in the morning. Zhang Fengjai felt a little depressed and didn't know what to say. Because Sulizi took the initiative to consider for the group, She also wanted to consolidate her newly appointed position as vice president. And the reason why she was able to sit in the position of vice president was due to his contribution in getting rid of the soul-eating goo for Shen Loxi. Therefore, he also had to bear a certain responsibility for Zheng Heiren's revenge afterwards. Sister Litsi, I hope you can trust and support me more in the future. Zhang Fengjai looked straight into Su Litsi's eyes and asked solemnly. Yezi, don't worry. Facing the mistakes she had made, there was no complaint or accusation, only a solemn request, which made Su Litsi feel more guilty and quickly promised. No matter what you do in the future, I will believe and support you without reservation. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 149. In the abandoned fertilizer factory. After secretly closing the recording program and putting away the phone, the young traffic policeman looked at Zhang Fengjai and Su Litsi, who were talking, sighed, and left the fertilizer factory with the help of the more than 1 meter high weeds. Because of the ransom amount Zhang Fengjai asked for just now, and the initiative to expose his location, he knew that more intense bloody conflicts would break out in the abandoned fertilizer factory next. After all, no one can gather a huge sum of 300 million in cash in just 20 minutes. So, the reason why the other party did this was to attract the masters of the Brotherhood Chamber of Commerce. Therefore, he planned to report the case to the Public Security Bureau with the video recorded by the mobile phone just now, and then mobilize the police and armed police in the city to destroy the Brotherhood Chamber of Commerce that has been rampant in Ningji City for more than 10 years. Looking up at the traffic police who quietly left, Zhang Fengjai couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, and turned his head to Su Litsi and gave instructions. Sister Litsi, drive back to our apartment right away. Okay. If it was before, Su Litsi would definitely ask Zhang Fengjai why he stayed alone, but she was too embarrassed to ask too much because she had just promised 100% trust and support. So, she could only nod in agreement depressedly, and after leaving a warning to pay attention to safety, she left the fertilizer factory through the weeds. After watching Su Litsi's sports car leave the fertilizer factory, Zhang Fengjai quickly turned back to the office building, then took out 4 blank talisman papers from his sleeves and took out a porcelain bottle containing black python blood from his pants pocket. Afterwards, he used the black python blood to draw 3 shape-changing talismans to deal with the Brothers' Chamber of Commerce, and used his own blood to draw a breaking talisman that could destroy the Feng Shui trend. In fact, the reason why Su Litsi left the fertilizer factory early was not because of the bloody revenge of the Brothers' Chamber of Commerce, but because of the special aura in front of the fertilizer factory office building. When extorting a huge ransom of 300 million yuan from Zheng Heiren, the young traffic police secretly turned on the video on his mobile phone, which did not escape Zhang Fengjai's keen observation. But his inner respect for the young traffic police made him embarrassed to stop the other party from secretly recording. In desperation, he could only change his own aura through the Danshan spiritual power to ensure that his image and sound would not be recorded. But it was precisely because of the change in his own aura that he discovered the secret hidden in front of the office building. At the same time, he also knew that the young traffic police's efforts just now were in vain. Because the secret hidden in front of the office building also involved the change of aura, the picture recorded by the mobile phone was just a snowflake. After putting away the 3 transformation talismans that could transform into black giant pythons, Zhang Fengjai began to walk around the entire office building holding the broken power talisman. It took nearly 5 minutes and 3 circles around the office building before he finally found the key point of the Feng Shui layout, which was the cornerstone of changing the aura of the entire fertilizer plant, a black stone that was only the size of a longan and corroded by the blood of 5 poisonous substances. Without risking the Feng Shui layout, Zhang Fengjai quickly returned to the open space in front of the office building. After knocking out the still screaming hooligans, he moved Zhenheiren and others who had already fainted to the weeds, and then he returned to the black stone again. Hu. Take a deep breath and exhale slowly. After calming down the nervous emotions in his heart, Zhang Fengjai directly mobilized the Danshan spiritual power to drive the breaking power talisman. The breaking power talisman driven by the spiritual power instantly burned up, and then turned into a scorching flame that directly wrapped the black stone. Under the high temperature burning of the talisman flame, cracks gradually appeared on the surface of the black stone. When the cracks mixed with the blood of the 5 poisons broke and scattered on the ground, 5 black lights quickly expanded to different directions of the office building. Quickly retreating more than 10 meters, his eyes were fixed on the end of the 5 black lights, and his eyes finally locked on the red brick open space in front of the office building, the 3 abandoned factories, and the equally abandoned warehouse. He flashed to the place where Zhenheiren was knocked unconscious just now, and used his strength like steel and iron to dig up 3 red bricks and 15 centimeters of mud. It is indeed the top feng shui formation of the 5 beads condensing veins. When Zhang Fengjai saw a red bead buried at the bottom of the mud pit, his eyes immediately showed a look of surprise. The 5 beads condensing veins is a top feng shui formation that uses the yin and yang dual veins as the basis and the 5 elements as the supplement. It extracts the spiritual power of the earth veins and finally condenses the 5 elements of spiritual beads. However, in the Taoist yin and yang 5 elements feng shui cultivation system, the feng shui formation of the 5 beads condensing veins is listed as a taboo formation, which is an insidious formation that is absolutely not allowed to be arranged. Because the earth veins are special beings with their own spirituality, and spiritual power is the basis for them to maintain their vitality, they will not easily leak a trace of spiritual power. Then, if you want to successfully extract the large amount of spiritual power stored in the earth veins, you must corrode the spirituality of the earth veins. The feng shui formation of the 5 beads condensing veins uses the poisonous blood of poisonous snakes, centipedes, toads, red scorpions, and spiders to paralyze the spirituality of the earth veins, and then uses the 5 elements of the Taoist beads to forcibly extract and store the spiritual power in the earth veins, and finally condense them into 5 elements of spiritual beads that can assist the cultivators in their practice. The earth veins that lose their spirituality and spiritual power will slowly become a place of yin leakage like Daguan village, which is why the feng shui formation of the 5 beads condensing veins is listed as a taboo. However, whether it is the arrangement of the sinister 5 beads condensing veins feng shui formation, or the fertilizer plant eventually becoming a place of yin leakage that cannot be developed, it has nothing to do with him. So, after taking a deep breath to suppress the joy that was surging in his heart, Zhang Fengjai buried the soil again and laid the red bricks. He did not take away the successfully condensed spirit beads immediately because the spirit beads had a telepathic connection with the owner who arranged the feng shui formation. If he took away the spirit beads now, it would inevitably alarm the mastermind behind the scenes, causing the other party to speed up and rush over. And then he had to face the revenge of the brothers' Chamber of Commerce, which made him neither have enough energy nor a suitable opportunity to have a head-on conflict with the other party. After all, he didn't know who was the mastermind behind the arrangement of the 5 beads condensing feng shui formation, nor did he know the other party's cultivation and strength. So, he planned to wait until he had completely solved the troubles of the brothers' Chamber of Commerce before taking the risk of taking away the 5 elements spirit beads. At that time, even if the other party's cultivation and strength far surpassed him, he could escape back to Rat Mountain in advance to hide. After restoring the mud pit that had just been dug, Zhang Fengjai threw the unconscious Zhenheiren and others back to the red brick open space, and then quietly waited for the arrival of Zheng Guangshui and others. The waiting time is not very long. As several harsh break sounds were heard at the entrance of the fertilizer factory, Zhang Fengjai, who had closed his eyes to regulate his breathing, suddenly opened his eyes and looked straight at the end of the weeds. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 150. Inside the abandoned fertilizer factory. Accompanied by the chaotic footsteps, at least more than 100 young men in black suits, holding machetes emitting cold light, appeared at the end of the weeds. Then, more than 100 young men with aggressive momentum began to use the machetes in their hands to clear the weeds, and soon cleared a passage directly to the red brick vacant lot. Then, more than 100 young men in black suits quickly dispersed into 2 rows, revealing 7 people behind the crowd. One of them was a middle-aged man with a very sturdy figure, wrapped in a white bath towel, and an axe tattooed on his naked upper body. After looking at the unconscious Zheng Heiran and others, he pointed directly at Zhang Fengjai and ordered, "Chop this kid into meat paste for me." After hearing the order of the sturdy middle-aged man, more than 100 young men in black suits scattered around, but did not rush up in a swarm, but approached slowly with the tip of the knife facing the ground, with a solemn look. Knowing that the more than 100 young men in black suits in front of him must be elite masters who have experienced hundreds of battles, Zhang Fengjai put away his contemptuous thoughts and directly mobilized 50% of his physical strength, then suddenly launched the attack with his right foot. Bang! Boom! Seeing Zhang Fengjai rushing over quickly, a young man with dyed yellow hair immediately swung the machete in his hand and chopped directly at his waist with a basic knife technique. In response, Zhang Fengjai gently slapped the machete away with his left hand, and punched the opponent's nose with his right fist, causing the opponent to faint from the severe pain. Then, he dodged the 2 machetes that were chopped at the back of his body, and directly hit the abdomen of the 2 young men in black suits with his hands, causing them to crawl on the ground due to severe cramps. With the help of the rebound force of the palm technique, while the body quickly retreated, he used the shoulder strike to knock out an opponent, and then swung his right arm suddenly, hitting a young man in a black suit who was planning to sneak attack. 20 seconds. Watching the 15 elite masters carefully trained by the Chamber of Commerce being easily knocked down by the thin boy in front of him in just 20 seconds. This made the sturdy middle-aged man, who was originally smiling, gradually look gloomy, and ordered the 3 middle-aged men in black suits behind him. "Kill him for me." After hearing the order of the sturdy middle-aged man, the 3 middle-aged men in black suits nodded, and then suddenly accelerated and rushed towards Zhang Fengjai. However, when they were less than 3 meters away from Zhang Fengjai, one of the middle-aged men directly jumped nearly 4 meters into the air, then bent his 10 fingers like hooks, and grabbed Zhang Fengjai's head directly with a claw style of an eagle striking the sky. At the same time, the other 2 middle-aged men quickly separated and attacked Zhang Fengjai's ribs. Facing the sneak attack of 3 internal masters who had reached the minor success stage, Zhang Fengjai's expression did not change at all. He stretched out his hand to grab the machete from a young man in a black suit, and then threw it directly at the middle-aged man who flew into the air with 60% of his physical strength. Then, after dodging the sneak attack of the 2 middle-aged men, he slapped the chest and back of the 2 opponents with his palms as fast as the wind. Bang! Puff, puff. Accompanied by the sound of falling and 2 spitting blood, the middle-aged man who flew into the air was stabbed in the chest by the machete and fell to the ground and died. The 2 middle-aged men who attacked were severely injured, spitting blood and fell to the ground unconscious. "President, this guy is very likely to be a top expert who has reached the realm of great success in internal strength. I'm afraid it will take the 3 of us to join forces to subdue him." After seeing 3 companions who had reached the realm of small success in internal strength being easily killed and knocked unconscious by Zhang Fengjai, a white-haired old man in a tang suit reminded the sturdy middle-aged man. "Then I'll trouble the 3 seniors to help." After hearing the solemn reminder from the white-haired old man, Zheng Guangshui, the president of the Brotherhood Chamber of Commerce, hurriedly bowed and politely gestured. "President, you're welcome. This is what we should do." After waving his hands to signal Zheng Guangshui that he didn't need to be polite, the 3 white-haired old men in tang suits and white suits mobilized their full internal strength in the realm of great success, and rushed towards Zhang Fengjai like a gust of wind. Zheng Guangshui, whose fierce look instantly replaced his modesty, took out a delicate and compact pistol from his bath towel, and then aimed at Zhang Fengjai, ready to shoot at any time. Looking at the three white-haired old men rushing over quickly, Zhang Fengjai took a deep breath without changing his expression, and then mobilized 80% of his physical strength to meet them. Bang! Puff! The right palm directly blocked the fist of the white-haired old man in tang suit. The powerful physical strength, while knocking the opponent away, caused the backlash of the internal force being dispersed, causing the white-haired old man in tang suit to spit out a mouthful of blood, and his originally ruddy face instantly turned pale as paper. After injuring the white-haired old man in tang suit, Zhang Fengjai quickly retreated to avoid the attack of the two white-haired old men in jin suit, and while his right foot suddenly used force to assist his body to rush forward, he slapped the opponent with his recharged palms. After looking at each other, the two white-haired old men in jin suit immediately took a standing posture, and then mobilized all the internal forces of the Great Perfection Realm to directly meet Zhang Fengjai's palms. Pa! Pa! Accompanied by two crisp claps, the two white-haired old men in tight clothes kept retreating, spitting blood from their mouths. Bang! Just as Zhang Fengjai easily defeated the two top masters of the inner family and was about to take a breath, a sharp and roaring gunshot suddenly rang in his ears. Although the speed of the Qingfeng step is very fast, it is limited by its own strength and cannot be compared with the maximum speed of the bullet after it is fired. At the same time, the ironclad body that is about to advance to the minor success stage already has the power to directly resist the shooting of bullets. Therefore, Zhang Fengjai did not dodge and quickly stretched out his right hand to grab the fast-shooting bullet. Zi! Accompanied by the sound of friction on the ground, Zhang Fengjai, who accurately grabbed the bullet with his right hand, was unable to quickly remove the impact of the bullet, and the whole person slid back nearly 5 meters. Then, he raised his right hand to Zheng Guangshui, whose face suddenly changed, and then slowly stretched out his 5 fingers. When the bullet in the palm of his right hand fell and there was no scar on the palm, not to mention the fear in Zheng Guangshui's eyes, even the 3 severely injured white-haired old men also showed fear in their eyes. "President Zheng, why don't you try firing a few more shots?" Zhang Fengjai clapped his palms lightly, walked towards Zheng Guangshui, and sneered provocatively. "Who are you, who are you?" Zhang Fengjai's performance just now, which was able to catch the bullet accurately with one hand and his palm was unscathed, was completely beyond Zheng Guangshui's knowledge and imagination. So, when he faced Zhang Fengjai who was walking towards him, his face instantly turned as pale as paper, his eyes showed a look of fear, and his voice was trembling as he asked,